See, wealth ain't just about money, it's about mindset, it's about building something that can't be taken away. Ownership, freedom, legacy. Too many people chasing the bag but missing the blueprint. They looking for signs of success in what they wear, what they drive, who they around, but the real signs, they internal, they spiritual, they mental before they ever get financial. When I was coming up, I ain't have nobody hand me a map. I had to build mine step by step through losses, lessons, and late nights. That's what wealth really is, the ability to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep showing up even when nobody clapping for you. So if you're wondering whether you're on the path to wealth, let me break it down. There's 5 major signs that tell you you're headed in the right direction. See, everybody want to be seen, but real wealth is built in silence. That's the part most people miss. They want the world to clap for them before they even start the work. They want the recognition without the sacrifice. But the truth is, when you're really building something that's going to last, it don't happen under bright lights. It happens in those unseen hours, when you grinding, learning, failing, adjusting, and stacking in silence. When I was investing in my businesses, people ain't understand it. They thought I fell off because I wasn't flashing jewelry or posting new cars. They couldn't see what was really happening behind the scenes. The meetings, the strategy, the investments that didn't look like money yet. But I wasn't broke, I was building. I was buying my time back. I was putting myself in position so one day I'd never have to trade my time for survival again. And that's the difference. Some people working to look rich, others working to be rich. You start realizing that attention fades, but ownership compounds. You could trend for a day and disappear tomorrow, but when you own something, it pays you every single day, even when you sleep. That's why I stopped caring about who was watching and started caring about what I was building. I started looking at the game from a different lens. It's the difference between being on a label and owning the label, between renting an apartment and owning the building, between making money for someone else and creating a system that prints your own. When your mindset shifts from chasing validation to chasing value, you unlock a whole new level of power. You stop asking, how can I make more money? And start asking, how can I make my money work for me? That's when the game changes. Because making more money without ownership just makes you a higher paid worker. You might have motion, but you don't have direction. Real wealth is when your money becomes an employee, when it's out there making plays while you sleep, while you travel, while you create. See, there's a reason wealthy people move different. They don't need to announce every win. They don't care to prove themselves. They know the real scoreboard ain't on social media. It's in the assets, in the freedom, in the control. The loudest one in the room, usually the weakest. The strong ones, the ones really up, they too busy securing equity, signing deals, buying property, and creating ownership opportunities for the people around them. That's how you know who's real about it. They not talking about their power, they moving in it. I remember when I first started making moves with the marathon, people didn't get why I reinvested so much back into the brand, why I was focused on real estate, or why I kept talking about ownership. But I saw the bigger picture. I didn't want to just be a rapper. I wanted to be an owner. I wanted to show the homies that it's possible to build something you can pass down, not just something that fades when the fame cools off. You can't pass down a chain, but you can pass down a company. You can't inherit clout, but you can inherit equity. That's the mentality shift. That's the wealth mindset. When you start thinking about longevity instead of the moment, you already leveling up. You realize that the person flashing the most often the one holding the least. Because if you're busy showing it off, you're probably not building it up. Every time I see somebody go quiet, move strategic, disappear from the noise, I know they cooking something big. That silence be powerful. That's when the transformation happens. Most people fear being unseen because they tie their value to attention. But the real ones know that the work you do in private eventually speaks loud in public. You don't need to broadcast your process. Your results will speak louder than your words. And the crazy thing is, once you truly embrace that mindset, you become unstoppable. Because nobody can distract you with clout when you focused on control. Nobody can tempt you with fame when you already got freedom. It's like this. You can either spend your life chasing applause, or you can spend your life building assets. The applause feels good for a moment, but assets feed your family forever. You can rent popularity, or you can own peace. I'd rather move in purpose than move in pressure. And it don't mean you can't shine. It just means your shine gotta be built on something solid. You can't let your worth depend on who watching. Your validation gotta come from your vision, because when your foundation is ownership, your value ain't up for negotiation. That's the mindset that separates the wealthy from the wannabes. When you stop caring about being seen and start caring about being secure, you'll start making different moves. You'll skip the unnecessary spending, the impulse buys, the I gotta prove myself moments. You'll start stacking, saving, investing. You'll start putting your energy into ideas that multiply instead of moments that fade. I've seen people chase fame so hard they lost everything, their peace, their focus, even their purpose. But I also seen people move in silence, play the long game, and wake up one day owning everything they used to dream about. That's why I always say the marathon continues. Because it ain't about how fast you move, it's about what you build while you're moving. When your moves start getting quiet, when your circles start getting smaller, when you're spending more time learning than posting, that's the sign you walk in the right path. It's uncomfortable at first. You might feel like nobody noticing you, like your grind invisible. But trust me, that's exactly how it's supposed to feel. Greatness don't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, in the unseen effort, in the moments where you choose discipline over distraction. You gotta understand, attention is rented, ownership is forever. Every time you trade focus for attention, you lose equity in your own dream. But every time you reinvest in yourself, your business, your peace, you're gaining real value. And that's what separates a boss from a performer. A performer needs a stage, a boss builds one. So if you find yourself moving different lately, more focused, more intentional, less worried about what people think, that's a good sign. You evolving, you valuing ownership over attention, you realizing that the real reward ain't in being noticed, it's in being free. And once you taste that freedom, once you start seeing the fruits of what you quietly built, you'll never want to go back to chasing applause again, because attention might make them remember your name for a minute, but ownership makes your name live forever. And that's wealth. If you're still thinking in 24-hour wins, you're not ready for 24-year growth. The path to wealth ain't about what you can flip overnight. It's about what you can sustain over a lifetime. It's about patience, discipline, and delayed gratification. The microwave mindset got people believing success supposed to happen quick, like it's some kind of fast food order. But the real players know it takes time. The foundation got to be strong before you start stacking floors on it. Because if you rush the process, the structure gone crumble when pressure hits. I remember selling my mixtapes for 100 each. People laughed, thought I was crazy. But they ain't see the vision. They saw a price tag, I saw a principle. That move wasn't about the money, it was about the mindset. I wanted to test belief, test ownership. I wanted to see who believed in me enough to invest. I wasn't thinking about today's profit, I was thinking about tomorrow's value. I understood that if you build something rare, something people can't copy, time gone make it priceless. See, everybody wants the fruit, but nobody want to plant the seed. The ones that get rich quick often go broke quicker because their mindset never caught up to their money. They skip the seasons of growth where you learn how to manage, how to multiply, how to maintain. But real wealth builders, they understand compound growth, not just in money, but in mentality. They know it's about stacking consistency, stacking character, stacking credibility. That's what lasts. You plant seeds, you water them daily, and you trust the process even when you don't see results right away. Because the growth happening underground long before it shows above the surface. That's how I always moved. I played the long game. I knew I couldn't rush legacy. I had to be okay with being misunderstood, okay with being doubted, okay with being patient. Because when you're building something real, it don't happen fast. It requires years of sacrifice, self-education, trial and error. But once it's solid, it's forever. That's the difference between momentum and foundation. Momentum can come from hype, but foundation only comes from discipline. You gotta think beyond the moment. You gotta stop asking, what can I get today? And start asking, what can I build for tomorrow? That shift in mindset changes everything. You stop chasing clout and start chasing control. You stop trying to impress people and start trying to impact people. You stop moving for attention and start moving for legacy. Think about it. Every powerful brand, every movement, every empire you see today started small. Apple started in a garage. Amazon started with books. Nipsey started on Crenshaw with mixtapes. It's about vision, not visibility. The world gone laugh at you when you start because they can't see what you see. But that's the beauty of thinking long term. You see the reward before it exists. You believe in the invisible. When I built the Marathon brand, it wasn't just about music. It was about building a system that could live beyond me. I wanted ownership. I wanted longevity. I wanted to show people that you could come from nothing and create something that feeds generations. That's long-term thinking. You got to be willing to sacrifice short-term shine for long-term power, because every move you make today is either adding value to your future or taking away from it. You know what's real? Most people quit because they can't handle waiting. They want success in a year that's meant to take 10. But what they don't realize is those 10 years of grinding, those late nights, those failed attempts, that's what builds the version of you that can actually handle success when it comes. The process is the protection. It shapes you. It humbles you. It teaches you how to move smart when the bag gets big. Because without that discipline, the money won't mean nothing. It'll just expose your flaws faster. You got to trust the timing of your journey. If it's taking a while, that's because it's supposed to. God don't rush what's real. And if you build it slow, you build it strong. I used to tell my team, we ain't in competition with nobody. We're moving on divine timing. I'd rather take 10 years to build something that lasts a lifetime than rush something that fades in a year, because fast money disappears, but strategic money multiplies. The truth is, patience separates the players from the pretenders. Most people fold because they're chasing emotions, not purpose. They want the dopamine, the validation that you made it moments. But when you locked in on purpose, you don't need proof. You know it's coming. You might not have the money yet, but you got the mindset. You might not see results yet, but you got the roots. And once the root's strong, the tree can't fall, not even in the storm. If you look around, the most successful people didn't blow up overnight. They played the long game. They invested in their craft, in their people, in their systems. They reinvested profits instead of flexing them. They kept learning even after they made it. That's how you stay relevant. That's how you stay wealthy. You keep evolving. And the thing about long-term thinking, it brings peace, because when you're moving for longevity, you stop comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10. You understand that everyone's timeline is different. You start focusing on progress, not perfection. Every small win becomes part of your foundation. You start enjoying the grind instead of resenting it. You start trusting the process instead of doubting it. That's when the journey gets beautiful. When you're playing the long game, you build differently. You don't cut corners. You don't make emotional moves. You don't let hype distract you. You understand that slow progress is still progress, because consistency is undefeated. Every day you stay disciplined, you increase your odds of success. Every dollar you invest, every skill you learn, every connection you build, it compounds. And one day everything clicks. The work you put in years ago starts paying you back with interest. The opportunities you created through patience start multiplying. The people who doubted you start quoting you. The same ones who said you was moving too slow realize you were just building too solid. So if you out there grinding and it feel like it's taking forever, don't get discouraged. That's how it's supposed to feel. That's how you know it's real. You're not chasing trends. You're building timeless value. You're not looking for shortcuts. You're creating structure. You're not worried about 24-hour wins. You're locked in on 24-year growth. And when you finally get there, you won't have to start over again. You'll be free. Because that's what long-term thinking does. It buys you freedom. It buys you peace. It buys you options. It lets you move on your own time, in your own way, without pressure or permission. And once you taste that kind of wealth, the kind built off patience, vision, and ownership, you'll never settle for fast money again. You'll understand that the marathon was never about speed. It was about endurance. And the ones who last always win. We living in a time where most people care more about looking successful than becoming successful. The energy different now. People want the image before the infrastructure. They'd rather post the illusion than build the foundation. But what they don't realize is image fades, knowledge lasts, because when you know something, no one can take that from you. Cars depreciate, clothes go out of style, trends die, but wisdom compounds. Knowledge is the real currency. It's the type of wealth that feeds every other kind of wealth, financial, mental, emotional, and spiritual. When I was coming up, I realized early that information was the biggest cheat code in the world. I didn't grow up around money, but I grew up around curiosity. I used to sit with books, interviews, documentaries, anything that could teach me how this game really worked. I'd read about marketing, real estate, investing, psychology, not because I wanted to brag about reading, but because I knew information was leverage. Every new thing I learned gave me a new way to move. Every principle I studied gave me power over something I used to be blind to. When I first learned about compound interest, about assets and liabilities, about intellectual property, my whole outlook changed. I started realizing I didn't have to just be part of the system. I could learn how to build one. That's the difference between hustling and scaling. Most people hustling just to stay afloat, but when you start learning, you start structuring. You start building something that runs without you. And that's what separates temporary success from generational wealth. You ever notice how the loudest people usually know the least? They make noise to distract from the emptiness. But the ones who really got it, they quiet because they still learning, they still growing. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. That's why humility always walks hand in hand with wisdom. You stop needing to prove yourself because your growth speaks for you. If you're out here reading, studying, learning while everybody else is scrolling, you're already winning. You might not see the results right now, but trust me, it's compounding. Every page, every podcast, every new concept you absorb, it's shaping the way you think. It's rewiring your brain for wealth. That's the real glow up. You invest in your mind before you invest in your image. You buy the skill before the chain. You learn the system before you flex in it. I used to look around and see people blowing money on temporary validation, new fits, new kicks, new cars, all to keep up with a lifestyle that ain't building them. But the moment the money slows down, the illusion collapses. Because when you spend to look rich, you stay broke. But when you spend to learn, you build something that keeps paying you. That's what separates the people who rise from the people who repeat. When I started reading about business models, I learned the real game. I realized the people getting paid ain't the ones in front of the camera. It's the ones who own the camera, the ones who own the platform. So I shifted my mindset from being talent to being a boss. I learned how distribution works, how equity works, how branding creates longevity. That's why I invested in the Marathon clothing store, in real estate, and ownership. Because I understood that every time I learned a new skill, I increased my earning potential. Every new thing I mastered became another stream of freedom. And that's how you gotta move if you're serious about building wealth. Stop chasing trends and start chasing truth. Stop buying to impress and start buying to improve. Because if you can't explain how your purchase increases your value, it's probably a liability. And if you can't explain how your time builds your skill, you're wasting your greatest asset. I've seen people spend more time learning how to edit pictures than learning how to build credit. More energy memorizing song lyrics than reading books about financial literacy. More focus on being seen than being educated. And that's why so many people stay stuck. They got potential, but they ain't feeding it. You can't grow on autopilot. You got to be intentional about your evolution. That's why I say knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is freedom. It's not enough to just read. You got to use what you learn. Every book you read, every mentor you listen to, every skill you develop, apply it, test it, fail with it, build something from it, because repetition turns knowledge into experience, and experience turns experience into results. I remember the first time I understood ownership, I was like, damn, they've been selling us the dream, but hiding the blueprint. They taught us how to work for companies, not how to build one. They taught us how to make money, not how to multiply it. That's when I made a decision. I was gonna learn everything they didn't teach us. I wasn't gonna be dependent on nobody to feed me information. I was gonna feed myself, and once I started, I couldn't stop. Every lesson opened another door. That's why you gotta stay hungry for knowledge, because learning keeps you humble, it keeps you dangerous. The more you understand the world, the harder it is for anybody to play you. The more you know the system, the easier it is to beat it. That's the real power, being so informed, so aware that nobody can control your narrative. Warren Buffett said it best, the more you learn, the more you earn. But I'ma say it how I lived it, the more you know. The less you settle, the more you study, the less you struggle. Because once you truly understand how this game works, you stop playing small, you start moving different. You start recognizing opportunities where other people see obstacles. I remember being broke but curious. I ain't have much, but I had drive. I was in the studio, on the block, in meetings, soaking up everything I could. I'd rather spend my last dollar on a book than a belt, because I knew the book could teach me how to make more dollars. That belt, it only looked good for a night. But knowledge fed me forever. You gotta think of your mind as your biggest investment account. Every time you learn, you're making a deposit. Every time you apply what you learned, you're collecting interest. That's how you compound wisdom. That's how you build generational power. You might not see it today, but 5-10 years from now, that curiosity gone puts you in rooms money can't buy. Wealth ain't about what's in your closet. It's about what's in your consciousness. When you walk into a room, people feel the difference between someone who's informed and someone who's pretending. The energy different. Because knowledge gives you confidence that can't be faked. It gives you presence. It gives you clarity. It gives you peace. And the crazy part, once you start valuing learning, you never stop. It becomes addictive. You realize that every lesson you master opens up a new level of the game. You grind till you shine, then you grind again. That's what real wealth is. A continuous loop of learning, earning, and growing. So don't get caught up trying to look rich. Build yourself to be rich in wisdom, in understanding, and discipline. Because once your mind wealthy, the money gon' follow. Always look at your circle. Really take a moment and think about who you spend your time with. Are you surrounded by dreamers or doers? Because energy is contagious, and if you sit in the wrong rooms long enough, it'll shape your mindset without you even noticing. You can't grow around people who don't believe in growth. You can't talk elevation with people who are comfortable staying at the same level. The truth is, you become what you're around. Your circle is a reflection of your standard. If you're around people who are always complaining, always blaming, always talking about what they can't do, that energy gone pull you down. You might think you're immune to it, but over time it seeps into you. Their doubt becomes your doubt. Their fear becomes your fear. But when you surround yourself with builders, with visionaries, with people who don't just dream but execute, that energy lifts you up. It fuels you. Start believing bigger because the people around you make it normal to think big. When I was building the Marathon brand, I made sure my circle was filled with people who saw beyond the moment. I wasn't just looking for talent. I was looking for alignment. I wanted designers who could see art as legacy, coders who could see technology as freedom, producers who could see music as ownership. I surrounded myself with people who believed in creating, not competing. We wasn't trying to outshine each other. We was trying to outbuild the system. That's the type of environment that breeds wealth. When everybody in the room is focused on building something that lasts. Because it's easy to get stuck around people who only talk. They got big ideas but no execution. They say one day I'm gonna do this, but whole one day never comes. You can't afford to spend your energy entertaining empty talk. Every minute you spend in those conversations is time stolen from your purpose. That's why the real ones move different. They protect their time, they guard their energy. They understand that every conversation is either feeding your growth or feeding your distraction. You start noticing the shift when your mindset changes. The sign you're on the path to wealth is when your conversations evolve. You start talking about real estate, stocks, digital assets, multiple streams of income. You start talking about systems, about scaling, about structure. You start asking questions that create solutions instead of ones that create complaints. You talk about strategy, not gossip. You plan your next move, not your next post. And that's how you know you're growing. Your circle starts shrinking, but your visions start expanding. There's power in being around the right people. Builders don't just inspire you, they challenge you. They hold you accountable. They don't let you play small. They remind you of your greatness when you forget it yourself. And that's love, real love. Because they want to see you win, not just watch you work. They push you to stretch, to evolve, to bet on yourself. I remember long nights in the studio, in meetings and planning sessions with people who had that same hunger, that same drive. We wasn't talking about what others were doing. We was focused on our own blueprint. We stayed up late designing strategies, building business plans, creating something that would outlive us. That's the type of energy you need around you. People who make work feel like purpose. And understand this, not everybody can come with you. That's one of the hardest lessons you learn on the way up. Some people only connected to the version of you that made them comfortable. They liked you when you were accessible, when you weren't evolving too fast. But the moment you start growing, the moment you start moving different, they'll say you changed, and that's okay. Growth gon' make you outgrow certain circles. You can love people from a distance, but you can't let their comfort limit your calling. You gotta make peace with losing people who ain't meant for your next level. Because you can't build skyscrapers with people who still thinking like tenants. You can't chase generational wealth with people who still chasing weekend vibes. If they not adding to your purpose, they subtracting from it. It's that simple. And don't get me wrong, being around builders don't mean everybody already successful. It means everybody hungry. It means they believe in progress. They show up, they do the work, they learn, they evolve. It's about energy and intention. You don't need a room full of millionaires. You need a room full of people who think like them. People who dream bigger, plan smarter, and execute relentlessly. You ever notice how success accelerates when you get around the right people? That's not luck, that's alignment. The right energy multiplies your momentum. When you're around people who talking goals, strategies, investments, you can't help but grow. You start seeing opportunities where you used to see obstacles. You start believing in possibilities you used to doubt because the people around you normalize success. That's why I always say, pay attention to the conversations you entertain. If every time you link with your people, all you talk about is others, you in the wrong room. But if every time you link, y'all brainstorming, planning, holding each other accountable, that's the room that'll make you rich, not just financially, but mentally and spiritually. The right circle will save you years. They'll connect you to information, resources, perspectives you wouldn't have found alone. They'll put you on game. They'll remind you that you're not crazy for dreaming big. They'll show you what's possible by living it. That's why environment is everything. You can have the right vision, but if you're in the wrong atmosphere, you'll suffocate your potential. You gotta curate your circle the same way you curate your goals. Be intentional. Surround yourself with people who see value in discipline, not drama, who see purpose in progress, not perfection, who clap for you when you're winning and build with you when you're losing. People who see your potential and want to help you reach it, not compete with it. Because here's the truth. When you're around builders, you stop needing motivation. Their grind becomes your reminder. Their success becomes your standard. Their faith becomes your fuel. You start realizing that wealth ain't built in isolation. It's built in alignment. It's built through community, through collaboration, through connection. And you'll know when your circle's right because the energy changes. Conversations get deeper. Ideas get bigger. Execution gets faster. You stop feeling drained and start feeling driven. You stop questioning your path and start walking in it. You stop talking about the dream and start living it. That's the beauty of surrounding yourself with builders. They don't just inspire you, they elevate you. They bring out the highest version of you. Because when you're around people who believe in progress, you can't help but grow. When you're around people chasing purpose, you can't help but move with passion. And when you're around people building empires, you can't help but build your own. So look at your circle. If you're the smartest, hardest working person in the room, it's time to find a new one. Because your circle should stretch you, not satisfy you. It should challenge you to go harder, think deeper, and aim higher. That's how you know you're in alignment with wealth. Not because of what you got, but because of who you got around you. At the end of the day, wealth ain't about what you can buy. It's about what you can walk away from. That's what freedom really is. It's not a car. It's not a chain. It's not a mansion. It's peace. It's options. It's control over your time. It's waking up and choosing how you spend your day instead of somebody else deciding it for you. See, when you broke, your choice is limited. You move out of need. But when you start building wealth, your decisions come from vision, not desperation. And that's the biggest difference. It's the shift from surviving to living. You reach a level where the goal ain't more money, it's more peace. Because once you've been through enough grind, enough struggle, enough noise, you realize peace is the highest currency. All the cars, the watches, the designer, that's cool, but it don't hit the same when your mind's still racing. You can't enjoy luxury if your soul's still fighting for rest. That's why I always say, real flex ain't in the jewelry, it's in the joy. The real flex is waking up when you want, doing what you love, providing for who you love, and not having to answer to nobody. When I first started out, I used to think money was the end goal. I wanted the bag, the recognition, the validation. But once I started getting it, I realized the money don't solve what's inside. It just amplifies who you already are. If you're unhappy, insecure, or lost, money only magnifies that. But if you're grounded, disciplined, and clear on your purpose, money becomes a tool, not a trap. That's why you see people get rich and still miserable. They chasing luxury, not liberty. They chasing image, not independence. I remember the first time I turned down a deal that didn't align with my vision. On paper, it looked like the biggest opportunity of my career. But in my spirit, it didn't feel right. And that's when I realized real wealth is when you got the power to say no and still sleep good at night. When you can walk away from anything that compromises your values. That's when you own your life. That's what being rich in spirit look like. Not chasing every check, but choosing peace over pressure. When you stop chasing the image and start chasing independence, you already rich, the money just catching up. Most people flex to prove something. They buy things they don't need to impress people who don't care with money they don't really have. And that's the fastest way to stay broke, mentally and financially, because it keeps you stuck in a cycle of performing instead of progressing. But once you start valuing freedom over flexing, everything shifts. You start seeing success different. You start moving different. I seen people go broke trying to look wealthy, and I seen quiet millionaires walk into rooms like they ain't got a dollar, but they own everything in the building. That's perspective. The loudest person in the room, usually the one trying to convince you of something, but the real ones don't gotta prove it. Their peace says it for them. Their presence speaks before their possessions do. That's real wealth. It's not loud, it's not showy. It's silent confidence that comes from knowing you built something that can't be taken away. Freedom is when you don't gotta ask permission to live your life. It's when you own your time. Think about it. What's the point of chasing millions if you still gotta wake up to somebody else's call, if you still dreading Monday, if you still working for approval instead of purpose? That's not wealth, that's a fancy cage. And too many people trapped in it thinking they winning because it looked good from the outside. Real wealth start internally. It's a mindset before it's a balance sheet. It's when your mind ain't in survival mode no more. It's when you trust the process enough to move with patience instead of panic. It's when your spirit calm even when things chaotic. Because peace under pressure, that's power. You can't buy that. You earn it through discipline, through alignment, through growth. That's why I always said the marathon wasn't about money. It was about ownership, about purpose, about running your race at your own pace. Legacy outlasts luxury. You can buy all the watches you want, but time's still ticking. You can buy all the cars you want, but you can't buy more miles on your life. So what really matters is what you do with your time while you're here, the impact you make, the lives you touch, the foundation you build so the next generation don't gotta start from zero. That's the real definition of wealth, when your name's still working even when you're not, when your blueprint's still feeding others after you're gone. The world got people thinking wealth is about accumulation, but the truth is, it's about liberation. The more you own, the more you should free yourself, not trap yourself in maintaining the image. That's why the smartest ones invest in assets that make money while they sleep, not liabilities that drain them while they awake. They understand that wealth without wisdom is wasted, so they spend less time showing and more time sowing into businesses, into knowledge, into people, into purpose. And I get it. In this era, it's easy to get caught up. Social media make it look like everybody winning but you. But don't let the highlight reel fool you. Most people posting freedom while still fighting for it. You gotta focus on the real game, the one that's quiet, disciplined, consistent. That's the path that lasts, that's the marathon. Because the truth is, freedom costs discipline. You can't get rich in peace if you got broke habits. You gotta make sacrifices today to buy your time back tomorrow. Every dollar you save, every skill you build, every move you make toward independence, that's a deposit into your freedom account. And when it starts compounding, that's when you realize how rich you really are. It's not about being perfect. It's about being purposeful. Every decision you make either brings you closer to peace or further from it. Choose the one that feeds your soul, not just your status. Because flexing might get you attention, but freedom gets you fulfillment, and fulfillment, that's something no amount of likes or labels can buy. I learned that when you move with peace, you attract prosperity. Not just financially, but spiritually. People can feel when you're grounded. They trust you more. They want to work with you, build with you, grow with you. Because your energy's solid. You're not desperate. You're not performative. You're centered. And that's the type of energy that creates real wealth, the kind that sustains generations. So yeah, wealth ain't about the things you can buy. It's about what you can walk away from. It's when you can say no to anything that costs your peace. It's when you don't gotta run from yourself no more. When you can sit still in silence and feel fulfilled. That's wealth. Because at the end of it all, the goal ain't to live rich, it's to die free. And if you can wake up every morning and know you own your time, your mind, and your purpose, you already made it.